This week we're going to focus on how to graph lines when we're given the equation of the line. The first method that we're going to learn for how to graph is by filling in a t-chart or a table. Now I'm going to tell you right off the bat that this method for graphing will work 100% of the time. So this is a method that you really want to learn and understand because you can always fall back on it. So far this year, well, even just this last week, I've given you the equation and the table that goes along with that equation. And you should know how to graph this line once you have the table, because the table just tells you points on the line. So you just graph the points that are given in the table, and that's the line of this equation. But the question is, where did these numbers come from in the table? Well, that's what we're going to learn, and that's what we're going to figure out for how to graph. So we're going to use this method to graph the line y equals 4x minus 3. Now first recognize that we have an x variable and a y variable here. And the x and y variable represent a coordinate on my graph, on my coordinate plane, right? So I'm going to plug in numbers for x and see what y should be, and that will help me fill in this table. So that's the process we're working with. Let me show you an example of how it works. So let's say x is 1. So I just came up with 1. Doesn't matter what I chose, I just like small numbers to work with. So in my equation, y equals 4x minus 3, instead of an x, I'm going to plug in a 1. And I'm going to do this math and figure out what y is when x is 1. 4 times 1 is 4, minus 3. 4 minus 3 is 1. So when x is 1, y is also 1. And there is a point on my line. 1, 1. Let's do another one. We can't really graph a line with just 1 point, so let's do some more. Let's choose 0 this time to plug in for x. Again, I'm just choosing small numbers because they're easy to work with. I could choose anything I want. 4 times 0 now, minus 3. 4 times 0, that's 0, minus 3. So it looks like when x is 0, y is negative 3. So there's another point on my line. 0, negative 3. And it's looking like the points are lining up. Let's do one more just to make sure our math looks good. Let's choose 2 now for x. So in y equals 4x minus 3, we're going to plug in a 2 instead of the x and solve for y. 4 times 2 is 8 minus 3. So that means y is 5. So x is 2. That means y is 5. So 2, 5 is another point on my line. And since all 3 of them line up, I know that the math I did was good. So now I can draw my line. And that right there is the line y equals 4x minus 3. Let's do another example. So this time we're asked to graph the line 2x plus y equals 3. So once again, we're going to choose values for x and figure out what y is. So we can choose any number we want for x. It's a good idea to stick with small numbers because they're easy to do the math with. Also, the smaller numbers will fit on our graph easier. So 0 is my favorite. So let's plug in a 0 for x in this equation. So 2 times 0 plus y equals 3. 2 times 0 is 0. And we end up with y equals 3. So when x is 0, y is 3. That is a point on my line. Let's do another one. Let's say x is 1. So in my equation 2x plus y equals 3, I'm going to plug in a 1 for x and solve for y. 2 times 1 is 2, plus y equals 3. Well, 2 plus what is 3? That should be pretty easy, but we'll do the algebra. Combine 2 with its 0 pair, which is a negative 2. Do that on both sides to keep it balanced. And we have y equals 3 minus 2 is 1. So when we plug in a 1 for x, we got a 1 out for y. So 1, 1 is another point on my line. Let's choose one more point. Let's do a negative this time, -1. -1 is small also, so I like it. This time a -1 for x. So plus y equals 3. 2 times the -1 is -2. Plus y equals 3. Now we're solving this for y. So get y by itself by getting rid of the -2. Combine it with its 0 pair, which is plus 2. And do that on both sides to keep it balanced. Those will cancel out, and we're left with y equals 3 plus 2 is 5. So when x is a -1, we got y equals 5. So that's another point. -1, 5. Now it looks like all 3 of my points line up. That's a good sign because that means my math was correct. So I can go ahead and draw the line between them. So this is the graph of the line 2x plus y equals 3. So go ahead and move on to the next video, and I'm going to go over a few more examples just so you can get the process down.